Alright, so we're going to get started on the theory of plate tectonics. So we have to get first situated with the word theory because we'll use this word in science pretty often. And the theory is pretty much accepted. Like when people use theory, they often make it sound like it's something that's not like yet known for sure. And in science, when you say theory, you're pretty solid. You just accept it. Plate tectonics was proposed in the 1960s, and then it was first thought about as a mechanism in the 1960s, and that's because we had the technology to go on there. And there was a couple of people, both Alfred Wegener, if I'm trying to say that right, who did continental drift, so if you can think that's about the continents, then Harry Hess's seafloor spreading. So continental drift, here's Alfred Wegener. He was born in 1880 and died in 1930, so this is, 1900s, and he was a geophysicist, and he kind of studied fossils around the world. And you think, well, how are fossils around the world going to lead to continental drift? And it's because when you look at them, you can actually start seeing that there are fossils here and fossils here. Now, how would two animals that are separated by an ocean be able to be living in the same place? That doesn't necessarily make sense, at least not given if you believe in evolution or because you don't have those same animals living there. And he started looking at them and he realized that pretty much the continents fit together like pieces of a puzzle. And you can look at this here and you have this idea that there are all these kind of ways that they fit together. And here you can see that there's all these different plates in the plate tectonic theory that show how all these parts of land masses are able to fit together. And some of this stuff happens underneath the ocean, right? And we can't listen to this one right here, but I'm going to ask you guys to go ahead and open up the link and then go to the link for this presentation and watch this seafloor spreading, because they're going to actually show you how the seafloor spreading is demonstrating much of the important concepts of how the Earth is split up into plates that move around, right? So basically, in the sea, there's a whole bunch of different areas, and it's going to be where you have the thinnest crust because it's closest to the mantle, right? Or the lithosphere closest to the asthenosphere. And in there, you're going to have all this high heat flow because it's so close to it, and you're going to have all these volcanoes and earthquakes that are going to happen along these ridges where the seafloor is spreading, which basically means that you're getting new magma pushed up, leading to new crust. And what you really get in plate tectonics is a combination of both continental drift, which is the idea of continents moving around, and seafloor spreading, which is the idea that the seafloor is moving apart to create new land. And so the way they did this is they used magnetometers to study the magnetic properties of rocks on seafloor, and this will make sense in a second. Seismometers, which were monitored atomic explosions and then studied earthquake patterns, and you may have read about this already. And then fossil records, which showed how the organisms and their past habitats may have been, to kind of understand why these places a long time ago may have been together. So originally, Alfred Wegener thought that all the present-day continents were once part of a supercontinent called Pangaea, and we've gone through so many iterations of these places moving apart and together over hundreds of millions of years that we've had a whole bunch of different arrangements. And this is Pangaea, you may have heard of it, that shows all the Earth together. The main evidence was that there were geologic similarities between that South America and Africa and India, which means that you had this glacial fill, then you have this coal, sandstone, shale, sandstone, and then basalt. And if you have the same sequence of rock layers, you're assuming that these rock layers are laid down in the same time. If they're laid down at the same time, or that means they're laid down in the same space, so they must have been put together around the same time and in the same area. So, and how can you have rock that's formed in Antarctica, Australia, South America before they exist unless they were together, right? That's the idea. So here we have the shape of it as a puzzle, and now we have a whole bunch of more fossil evidence before they had these kind of like plant and other, they're not dinosaurs necessarily, but ancient organisms that lived. And then here we have all the different iterations of Pangaea, the Triassic, the Jurassic, Cretaceous, and now currently of how the Earth has just moved around to different places. Pangaea was this supercontinent, one large landmass where everything was together, and it was before the age of the dinosaurs, 200 million years ago. And it started to break apart, and they thought to have drifted to their current locations. Now, drifted is kind of a weird term of just flowing wherever, but it's good to understand, right? So here is seafloor spreading. So as you know, the Earth has a magnetic field, and that field every 5 million years or so flips, right? Or not every 5 million years, but the magnetic North Pole flips every 10,000 years or so. And as a result of it flipping, you're going to have iron that is inside the ground move, because iron is magnetic. So one time it's going to be flipping north, because that's how a compass works, where it's flipping north one way, and then it's going to all of a sudden be flipped, and it's going to be pointing in the other direction. And you're going to have this because when it comes out as wet, liquid magma, it's going to be forming in a way, then it's going to harden, and then it's not going to move anymore because it's a rock. It's not going to move. So it's stuck in that position, pointing in that direction. And then over time, you're going to have these bands that are going to have your normal polarity within the normal north, and then flipped to the other north, or to the south, because the magnetic North Pole has switched. Here's seafloor spreading, which is showing that as this magma is pushing up and using this force to go up, it's going to cause these parts of crust to split apart, which means that these continental crusts, which are attached to it, right, part of this lithosphere, are going to be moving in opposite directions, which is really going to be leading also to this continental drift that they talk about. So once again, if we look at the Earth's interior, they're missing the mesosphere, right? But we can see that the lithosphere, which is really part of the crust, and then underneath it you're going to have this asthenosphere, which is going to be moving, and then you're going to have the inner and outer core, which are leading to the magnetic places, the magnetic poles. So main way that, or one of the major ways that scientists learn about the interior of Earth is by studying earthquake waves. There's two types of earthquake waves. There's P and then there's S waves, and we'll kind of learn about that in a bit. And they travel through the Earth and lead to understand or deduce, use some logic that the interior, or parts of the interior, were actually liquid, because the way the wave travels, when it hits the liquid part, it changes and goes a different speed. And you guys can imagine that in any sort of, just like hitting water and you see the wave, but you can hit something else that's maybe jello and it's going to behave differently, and you're going to kind of even have ripples that happen in solid things, right? So start talking, convection is super important to understand. As you have convection, you have that idea that where the heat source is, it's going to lead to the molecules to spread apart because they're moving and bouncing into each other, and as they move and bounce into each other, they're going to become less dense because there's going to be more space. It's going to rise, and then it's going to cool off, relatively speaking, and sink, which leads to these convection cycles, which happen here in the mantle, or the asthenosphere, and as a result, it's leading to the pulling apart of these continental plates, which are part of the lithosphere. In other places, it might lead to them running into each other. So this is going to be some other vocabulary that we'll get to in a bit. But because of this convection motion that's happening, we have these materials that are rising and sinking that's leading to the movement of the lithosphere. So here you can see all these tectonic plates that are kind of marked by volcanic activity and earthquakes, because whenever two plates are running into each other or pulling apart from each other, you're going to have more volcanic and seismic activity. So the theory goes that Earth's outer layer, the lithosphere, is made up of these plates, different chunks of continent, and they move throughout all of history, and it's why we have mountains, volcanoes, and earthquakes. It's why the moon doesn't, and we think that at one point Mars did, but then those sort of things went away, right? The dynamic Earth, the dynamic structure of the interior of those planets, this didn't ever happen, right? So you're not going to have, a mountain form on the moon. And then you're going to have plate movement at three types of boundaries. And there's three types of plate boundaries. Convergent, where they push together. Con, like together, like in Spanish, or anytime you have two things together, it's con. So convergent, and you're going to have subduction zones, sub meaning below, and that's where one's going to go underneath and one's going to go on top. You're going to have mountains, and that can happen where two meet together. And then you also have these seep D trenches where you're going to have them as well. Then you have divergent, which is going to be rifts, rift valley, mid-ocean ridges where they're pulling apart. And then transform or transverse, which are side to side, and that's usually where you have earthquake zones. And I'll have some pictures that show them here, right? So here we have transform boundaries, which are rubbing next to each other in opposite directions. Here we have a divergent one, which are splitting apart, and then you also have convergent ones, which are leading to mountains being formed. And so if you look at this picture, it's just a good one to show that, here's the subduction zone because one's going underneath. And here's it subducting right here. It's slippery. Here you have continental crust. You have mountains that are forming. You have a trench here, which is happening where they're going together as well. You have spreading apart, transform, earthquakes will happen there. So it's because of this, it's just constantly being regenerated, sinking, rising, all happens very slowly. At divergent boundaries, plates move apart from one another. You have rifting, or spreading occurs. Rifting occurs either in oceanic or continental crust. It happens no matter where you have them splitting apart. It's more common, I believe, in the ocean, but there's a lot more of the land that's covered with ocean. You have the mid-ocean ridges, the East African Rift Valley, and the Rio Grande Rift Valley. For geologists, New Mexico is actually super interesting because we have a lot of interesting geologic things that are happening here. And it's where you have two places that are spreading apart. That's a divergent boundary. Convergent boundary happen when they come together. And you are going to have usually kind of belts that happen because it's going to cause basically a ripple as it's going to push up. So you have a subduction zone where one plate is pushed beneath another, and this has to deal with which one is going to be more dense and which one's going to be less dense. And if you have ocean to continent, you're going to have the oceanic plate subduct because it's less dense or more dense than the continental crust. And as a result, it's going open. Then you have ocean to ocean, which is going to be subduction as well. And you have continental, which run into each other. They're both the same, so definitely you're going to have pushing up. And whenever they're running together, right, you're going to have some things that pop up because that's how mountains form. The transform boundaries, and when you have two sides running next to each other, and that's going to cause what's called shear stress, and as a result, you'll have earthquakes that happen because they kind of get stuck, and then they'll vibrate and lead to an earthquake. So there's one last idea in theory, which is called hotspots, and it's because at one spot there's going to be one area where the magma is going to be able to rise, but over time these are going to move, right? And you're going to have this one hotspot, which is going to lead to a whole bunch of volcanic areas that were once connected to this main hotspot, right? We have geysers, volcanoes, atolls, and seamounts where this is going to happen, where there's just closer access to the hotter mantle. And Yellowstone, if you've ever been there, super cool. You have all this magma that might be living in a certain area, which is heating up the water, and it has to release the pressure, and it shoots up. Oceanic hotspots that happen, seafloor spreading moves over a hotspot. You're going to have a volcanic chain because you have all these volcanoes that were accessing this one hotspot, which led to, as it was moving away, a whole chain of volcanoes. Many of them, right, that aren't going to be active anymore because they're no longer having connections to that hot magma. That's it for now.